You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we're going to be talking about Jonny Bairstow, the love of our lives, the hero of English cricket, the man who took. It was a famous victory. He led the charge, a famous victory for England over the Kiwis. It's a 2-0 series lead, unassailable. The Ben Stokes-McCullum era is off to a flyer, and a bunch of other stuff. The route was quite good. I don't know if you saw that. He was quite good. I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined by Ross Legg. Ross, you haven't been on the show with me for like a year. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm so healthy. My mental health is in a great health. My physical health has been a great health. Yeah, I'm great. I'm great. After a day of having the Test cricket on in the background. I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal. I've seen like T20 games be far less interesting than that last hour.
Yeah, well, stat off the bat. In the last 20 overs of the game, England scored 179 runs, which is more runs than they scored in their last 4 T20s. Not
That
each.
is a good stat.
They've not been averaging 40 runs per T20, but it's you get the gist. Ross, what do we need to tell our listeners?
They should follow us at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram, and then also sign up for Patreon. The Discord channel has been a revolution for us in our engaging with our fans. So go on to Patreon /the Cricket Podcast or patreon.com /the Cricket Podcast and get involved. They're the main things.
Yeah, do that. We've got some bonus shows coming up, and I think we actually will finally have the time to record them this week. So
you've been on holiday. We got cricket.
You've been on holiday too.
Hey, yeah, I did. Yeah, I went to Bath.
I went on holiday for like 2.5 weeks. So
I went for the weekend. And then also, if you're watching us on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and also leave a review. Spotify, we're up to like 275 reviews, I think now, or like 4.8 rated. We're taking that. We're taking that.
I'll take that.
Average.
Yeah, it's not as good as some other podcasts. So give us some 5s, boost us up, if you wouldn't mind.
That wasn't what I was saying. I wasn't saying go onto it and give us a 2-star review. That's not exactly the message.
Yeah, some people do that though, don't they? Yeah, they can't. They're jealous of our success. I suspect.
That's exactly what it is.
We've also we've got our old sponsors logo on the thing. That code doesn't work anymore if you're on YouTube, but we do like Serious Cricket, so we're happy to give them a shout out on this episode. And we'll shout out Max for not updating any of our templates.
Lazy. That's what he is.
Lazy. He comes across as like the hard-working one, but really, I think
he's the one that lets us down. He should be on.
Where is he now? Yeah,
he pulled out today. Anyway,
Ross,
right, let's talk about the cricket.
Yeah, Max and I, we actually did a podcast on the first 3 days. Do you want to? You can gloss over that, but do you want to quickly summarise, where we were coming up to today, or the whole match, or whatever you want to do? Really, talk about the cricket.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that when the game started and New Zealand racked up 553, Ben Stokes must have been sitting there going, "Oh my God, what have I done? I've won the toss. I've chosen to bowl. I've conceded all these runs." And if you're an England fan, you're looking at it going, "Oh shit!" Like that was the position I was in to decide. This is going to be an innings defeat. This is how I felt, and I'm sure many other English fans did as well. But then we roared back, and the game was set up really quite nicely. And New Zealand suffered a little bit. Obviously, Jameson got injured. There was some preposterous decision making in the batting of New Zealand. They had 2 comedy run-outs. They threw many wickets away, and it was only really Daryl Mitchell who kind of had a sense of calm about him when he was there in the second innings. Yes, there was a couple of 50s for Young and Conway, but even then there was a piece around the way in which Mitchell was approaching things just seemed a little bit different. Unfortunately, his ability to bat with the tail, or at least his approach to bat with the tail of I'm facing the first ball of the over, I'm going to get a quick single and let them face the 5, wasn't the smartest thing to do.
Good for your average, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very good for your average. Very good, and that's
and
what
he got not out.
It's all about.
And he got not out.
It's the red ink is what it's all about.
250 runs he got in this test, 1 out. That's good.
That is good going. But some of the tail did some bits. Henry hit 18. Bolt was entertaining as well. And the doomsayer commentators were just like, these are valuable runs. They're going to put England to the sword. And it was, it was in the balance. They had about 300 to chase. It was 299. And then we lose to Zach Crawley, 1.4 overs in, playing exactly the same shot as he did to get out the innings before. But Alex Lees was in fine fettle. He was aggressive. I think he was 30 from 30. And it kind of set the tone for England batting. Even losing Pope and Root relatively cheaply, there was a feeling of England fans going, "Oh no, we're going to collapse. We're back to old England. The new era is going to be exactly like the old era." But no, Jonny Bairstow and Ben Stokes were fantastic together. Bairstow has to take the majority of the plaudits because he pulverised New Zealand. They were shell shocked. They were mistreated. It was an absolute demolition that we have seen from Jonny Bairstow in white ball cricket. Haven't really seen it in red ball cricket, and it was absolutely phenomenal to watch. And England come away with plenty of time to spare, and a famous 5-wicket victory.
They could have got more runs. They wanted to, couldn't they? 400 was on. It was pretty
really pound them into the dirt.
Let's talk Jonny Bairstow. Young YJB, people still call him young, don't they? It's not really.
I thought the YJB was Yorkshire's Jonny Bairstow, not young Jonny Bairstow.
Oh, I thought it was young Jonny Bairstow.
Ah, okay. Can we do a poll on that in the live chat?
Yeah, we'll do it in a second. It was good. Bairstow, just for sort of an indication of how good, it is the fastest that any player has ever scored in a session after tea in Test cricket, who scored a decent volume of runs. 12.7 and over, he was scoring by himself. It wasn't just an IPL innings; it was a really good IPL innings that he was playing there. It was that little spell after tea break. What do they get? 42 in 16 seconds or something like that. Took the run rate in I think it was 18 balls. It took the run rate from 4.2 and over to 3.3 and over. At tea, the draw was still pretty big favourite. England had according to Google, a 1/3 shot of winning. Draw was a big chunk, and then New Zealand were down at 10%. So he transformed that pretty quickly. Second fastest 100 by he had a few shots, didn't he? Getting the fastest ever 100 by an England batter, Some geezer whose name I've already forgotten, back in 1902. 77 balls, 9 fours, 5 sixes. Is what he ended with, and then he carried on and went even crazier. I think only McCullum has scored sort of 100 or that many Test runs that quickly when he got 185 against Australia. So it's in terms of crazy things that have happened in cricket, it was right up there with the very best. And then you have to factor in as well, this is the 4th innings of a match. It's Bairstow. He's under a little bit of pressure. Maybe he wasn't fantastic in the West Indies. He wasn't fantastic in the last match. I think he's probably going to keep his place in the team or something. It wasn't at death's door or anything like that. But every time he goes 3 tests, people are like, "Oh, maybe we should get rid of this guy." And it was starting to get to that point, and then he goes ballistic. It was against a pretty good bowling attack. Obviously the Kyle Jamieson thing is a negative point, but Tim Southey, Trent Boult aren't bad. Matt Henry's not great. And
he's been good in England before, though.
Yeah.
It was
good. It was good. Ross, there was a question or posed around tea time, I think on the BBC. The greatest innings by an England player in the last decade. At the top, they had Ben Stokes, 150 odd or whatever it was, 158 against Australia. I don't think it's knocked that off its perch. Second, Kevin Peterson in Mumbai, 186. Yeah. Again, I'm not sure it's quite better than that. Would you put it on the podium though as the third greatest innings in the last 10 years by an England batter? Or where do you see this as in terms of greatness? Or was it just a flat deck and a bowler?
It was an absolutely brilliant deck to bat on, definitely. But 35 wickets also fell in the game, so you can't sit there and just kind of say there wasn't enough in it for the bowlers, etc. I think there was some semblance of balance. I do think that this is one of the greatest innings for England, definitely in this new era. In the
last 2 matches.
No, since we got to number one and then fell from grace. So that's
Okay.
why I was going to say.
Yeah,
So
yeah, right.
in that period, I think this, alongside some of Root's innings and obviously Ben Stokes' innings, is there or thereabouts. To score that quickly and to decimate this bowling, he was so dismissive of everyone in front of him. And what I really liked about it was that we have seen Jonny Bairstow fall into leg side traps before. Here, Trent Bridge just wasn't big enough to play the leg
Yeah.
side trap. Like, he was smashing it 20, 30 rows back. And so I think, yeah, it's in the top five, I think.
In the top five. Stokes described it as him as having Johnny eyes. I think he's one of the players who you did see does sometimes just have a look, doesn't he? He's not. I know what Johnny eyes are, as I'm sure you two, and they were certainly on show. What I was sort of quite interested, because obviously tactically it's quite brave by England to play the way they did. I mean, you expect to lose a wicket early, and so Crawley goes, and Pope comes in. Lees is sort of going crazy, isn't he? What did he get? 28, 29. The first 29 runs of the innings were all Alex Lees. Then he was like, "Oh, I'm going a bit quick," and I think he scored one of the next 28. So he flipped it round a little. But when Root goes, the safe thing to do would have been to be like, we've got 50 overs to bat here. Let's not humiliate ourselves. Let's bank at least a series draw against the World Test champions. How excited were you, or do you think? I guess, do you think it was a good decision? Obviously, we're saying that with hindsight. Yes, clearly it was a good decision, but or how brave a decision is maybe a better question to ask there.
So I think that the game was there for the taking. I think when they had a bowler down, Tim Southey had a shocker of a Test match and looked tired. They pretty much had to survive against Trent Boult. Once the ball stopped moving for Matt Henry, wasn't really that much of a threat.
Okay.
It was just, they pretty much going, if we can take on Trent Boult and survive there, then we've got this in the bag. Bracewell as only started bowling spin 2 years ago, and genuinely looks like a part-time music teacher. He doesn't look like he should be playing international Test cricket, but again, looked okay with the bat. But here, Bairstow and Stokes probably in that position. Which is like, we've got folks to come, and then nothing really, like genuinely nothing.
Got broad.
And so if we lose lose one of those guys trying to play a defensive shot, and it's all a bit tame, and we've not even got even close to the target, I think that's more humiliating than going down swinging.
All right.
And then I kind of thought, yeah, you can't sit and say that you're going to change your brand of cricket, change your vision for English cricket in this format, and then bow for the draw in the second game that you're doing it. I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's. Yeah, I think that's maybe fair. I just thought at the fall of the fourth wicket, that at that point New Zealand probably were favourites to win the match. And I actually probably wouldn't have blamed them if they'd been like, let's block. It was under 50 overs at that point, and as you say, they didn't really have too much of a tail. Part of me also thought that next week when they're all out for 125, people will be having a go at them because they played like this. And I sort of wonder a little bit. Bairstow in particular, since he's got back into the Test team, has basically tried to play this innings 70% of the time he's gone out to bat. Like, this innings is so extraordinary that obviously you can't really in a sense aspire to it. But he's not died wondering in any of the matches, and I think if you were to say Jonny Bairstow is going to go out and attack 40% of the balls he faces, which is what he did, he tried to hit a boundary of 40% of the balls he faced, then you'd probably expect England to have lost this match. So I did think it was slightly crazy, but that's the joy of sport, isn't it, Ross? It's why we watch the game, because something as incredible, as unpredictable, as impressive, fundamentally, as this can happen.
And that's the chasm that I think Test cricket faces, right? I think there is a bit around. You've got such a good product in terms of the T20. You've got the 100 that's now coming in, and even ODI cricket to a certain extent. It's exciting, right? People want to go and watch that. Here, Trent Bridge, Nottinghamshire County Cricket Club, made it free on the last day. They got a sellout crowd. It had been pumped up in the media as how well positioned this was going to be. this was the statement, right? This was the statement around, can we get people back into cricket? Can we get people really engaged in Test cricket? And I think they've achieved that. I think going out and doing this game and batting in the way they've gone and trusting their instincts, I mean, it's paid off. And maybe, maybe this is the one in 100. Maybe this is 1 in 50 kind of chance of this happening. I don't know. But everything went right for them. So fair fucking play.
Maybe that's the future. 360 overs at 4.5 and over. The boundary every other over, isn't it? There's a lot. Nobody can say you haven't got action if what just happened in every test.
I really enjoyed it. I'm sure everyone else did.
Oh, I think in terms of raw entertainment value, it was one of the most entertaining tests I can recall. It was loads and loads of runs, some great shots, enough wickets that the result was always possible. Like it going into on Sunday night when Max and I were ranking the chances of a win, lose and draw. I think we had the draw over 50%, but there was still both teams still had a chance. Going into today, it was reasonably similar situation. And if it was going to be a draw, it was going to be the right type of draw. If that one of the teams was definitely going to be in it to win it near to the end of the day's cricket, and if it ended up being a draw, it ended up being a draw. But it wasn't a Pakistan-Australia draw.
There was going to be Jeff Anderson type draw rather than that draw. Yeah,
a different topic. Oh no, Ross has disappeared. You back?
I'm here. Okay,
all right.
Don't you worry. My internet is absolutely terrible as always. So let me just go onto a different internet.
Oh no, now he's gone to a different internet. Okay, right. Well, that was after that micro diversion. I should have done like an ad, shouldn't I? That would have been the clever thing to do.
But I'm here. I've already done it. That's the beauty of technology.
Yeah,
I think what we need
wave
to do
your
is
arms, do the signal if you're going to go down, and then
solid Team America.
Oh, he's done it again. Patreon.com/the Cricket Pod if you want to support the show directly, and maybe if lots of people sign up, we'll be able to afford more than a 10 gigabyte internet connection for our friend Ross Legg. Are you back now, Ross?
Yeah, I'm back. So when we start thinking about this performance, we've got to obviously look at New Zealand. So all of the stuff you just talked about was genuinely in which it was set up. But New Zealand had some great performances, but they also did quite a lot wrong. And I thought today, when they started attacking, Kane Williamson obviously out with COVID, he struggled a little bit. Wasn't really had conservative enough to stem or containment to contain all the runs that were being hit. And sometimes when a batsman's in that mood, you can't do anything. But here, it just felt like they were a bit short of a plan. And the one to go short to Bairstow from that, it obviously didn't execute it very well, and it went terribly wrong. But they still had 160 runs to play with when it was starting to go wrong. And their inability to adapt was quite painful to watch, I think, if you were a Kiwi.
What adaptation would you have gone to? Because I have a little bit of sympathy for New Zealand here. Not only have they lost a bowler, they've lost maybe the best bowler in the world. Certainly somebody who's in that conversation, right? He doesn't bowl a single over as well. It's not. He didn't bowl some of the overs and then go off. It's he hasn't bowled a single over. Was Daryl Mitchell the answer? I mean, recent IPL performances would suggest that no, he isn't the answer. But some people were calling for him.
Yeah, again, it was about trying something a little bit different, right? And at this pitch, was a belter. Bairstow was getting a bit of turn, but as I said, he's not a prodigious spin bowler. No way he'd be the leading spin bowler for any international test team. But here he is. But the fact that Mitchell didn't even bowl one over was a little bit surprising for me. Especially when you're trying to balance that workload on those bowling, as you said, Jameson's out. Even if it's just to try something different, there just wasn't that position. And I think trying to come around the wicket to Bairstow and bang it in, it has worked in the past. But when he genuinely was smashing it. It wasn't like, if you watch the highlights, if you haven't watched it, go and watch the highlights. Everything's coming out the middle, and maybe Latham and New Zealand couldn't do anything, but they chose not to do anything, which I think was the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think their hands were tied, if I'm honest. I don't think there was another option. There was perhaps England were lucky with when the wickets fell, in that they, maybe again in hindsight, getting Daryl Mitchell on to bowl some overs a bit earlier would have been a good idea, just to sort of space out the workload of Tim Southee and Trent Boult. But England lost wickets at stages that made New Zealand probably feel like they were in the game to win the game, which meant they had to sort of stick with the main three guys who may have taken a wicket. I also I felt a little bit for Bracewell, who actually he bowled okay on Sunday, a couple of nights ago. I don't know whether there was an awful lot he could have done in that particular matchup. I mean, we don't talk about matchups loads in Test cricket, but we do in T20 cricket. And anyone who's sort of followed our IPL coverage, or sort of just the career of Jonny Bairstow, will know that he is supreme against spin, and particularly off spin, spinning into him. I don't know whether there was. I don't know whether this is necessarily Bracewell being bad, or Bracewell just being Bracewell being Bracewell.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, like it was a bit like that, wasn't it? Like Jonny Bairstow just decided he was going to go out and blitz people, and Michael Bracewell happened to be one of the most blitzable people there. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking 8 overs, 60 runs, 7.5 economy. He might have got away with that a little bit, the way things were going after tea.
If you're a farmer though, and you're in that position where you're just like, I really like this lamb, I don't want this lamb to be slaughtered. You don't then send it to the abattoir like he did there. That was the bit where I think Latham could have used Mitchell a little bit more, potentially even trying something a bit different. There must be someone in this team who might offer something else.
Well, I think his name's Colin de Grandhomme, and he's not. He's also injured, isn't he? Like it's
injured,
yeah.
I just think that I'm not sure if it would have ultimately affected the result if Daryl Mitchell was bowling any more overs.
No, I don't think it would have either.
But I think it might have stemmed some of the blood flow. But I think England came out deserved winners. But again, I think on this regard, New Zealand could only have their selves to blame a little bit. I don't think that they batted particularly well in the second innings. I think they threw away their chances.
I think if we're going to go back, that's where they lost it. I think that was a really confused innings, and we probably haven't touched upon it enough because of the Bairstow carnage. But if you sort of look through what they were all trying to do, 2 run-outs, that's not great ever, is it? But Devon Conway out to Jack Leach, caught slog sweeping. I don't think that was fantastic cricket as well. Then you had Michael Bracewell come in and hit 25 off 17 balls, whilst at the other end Daryl Mitchell got 62 off 131. And it's like, I mean, have you not? Presumably you're talking between overs, lads. Like, what's the game plan there?
And maybe they were trying to kind of force the result. Maybe they were just like, we need to get a chance back.
Well, some of them were, and then Daryl Mitchell's batting like he's trying to take time out the game.
Daryl Mitchell's there just to hit runs. He's just like, I'm in a purple patch. I'm going to bolster my average. So when I retire, I'm going to have an average over 40.
All I'm saying is, I just thought it was a bit strange how they kind of went about it. Like some crazy running because they were presumably trying to get a score quite quickly. One guy batting really slowly and sort of shepherding the tail to their deaths. The last recognised batsman getting caught at mid-off, coming down the wicket to a seam bowler. It was sort of confused. Maybe they thought they had enough runs. I wonder if that was the case, that they thought 200 and what were they when he was out, when Bracewell was out, 230 ahead. 200. No, I mean they didn't have enough runs. But I don't know. I just there's some sort of confusion there. That's where I think New Zealand really had the opportunity to not let this happen. I think after tea, once Stokes and Bairstow play like that on the pitch that they were on, with tired bowlers, with an old ball, with short boundaries, it's always a possibility. Now when we're talking about Bairstow, and we've talked about how it's an incredible innings, yeah. Bairstow's, you can make a very good statistical argument that Bairstow's the best ever ODI opening batter. Like, it's very difficult to come up with an argument, statistically speaking, that isn't the case. He scores.
I mean,
The averages. Well, it's true.
Origin
I'm
list is
sorry.
going to be like Rohit Sharma.
Well,
Rohit
you know,
Sharma.
okay, you
No.
can say Rohit Sharma, and Bairstow has about the same average, but scores his runs at 105 instead of 90.
But you know me, I love Jonny Bairstow.
Like, so it's if you have a guy who is that good and you put him in an ideal situation, then the outcome we saw today is a possibility. Like, it's not unheard of for Jonny Bairstow to score 150 in 100 balls. Or
So do you know what, when I was watching this, I genuinely saw it as this was the innings that England always wished Josh Buttler would play.
I thought that as well. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think there's probably slightly more orthodoxy to it in the Bairstow does move his feet a bit more than Buttler, but I do think that's the case. I think as well with Bairstow, you have to give him sort of more credit. Going back to that point about how they could have shut up shop. I mean, like, you have to have extreme self-belief, I think, to have had the career in Test cricket that Bairstow has had and still try and attempt what he did today. Like, when the whole universe has told you that isn't going to work, and he's like, I'm going for it. Like,
hey, that's a positive mindset, baby.
No, it was it was good. And we've got some people in the chat who want us to talk about IPL broadcasting rights in India, and we'll probably get to that in 10 minutes or so. Should we do the questions related to this match before that, though, Ross?
Yeah, I think so. I think one thing I wanted to talk about was just England's opening batsman.
Oh,
I know
okay.
it's been something that people have called upon, and they might even have a question about it. I don't know, but when it comes to Zach Crawley and Alex Lees, what's your view, Jack? Because at the moment, I'm really struggling to get really behind either of them. I think Alex Lees is his best Test match, and Zach Crawley
he has had his best Test match.
Yeah.
There's no
everyone
about
two
that.
ways about it.
Yeah.
And Zach Crawley is one of those players he can look the best player in the world, but unfortunately, zero consistency, zero. Like, how do you manage that as a team moving forward?
I was pleasantly surprised with how good Alex Lees was. I had thought, based on the tests that I'd seen so far, that he was quite a one-dimensional cricketer, like a bad Dom Sibley or a badder Dom Sibley, perhaps. I think he showed in this test that might not necessarily be true. Or at least he's prepared in the right circumstances to play a few shots. I think he'll be a little bit gutted that he didn't get a ton in either innings. You're not going to get many better opportunities, I think.
He was so well. Today he was looking good, and apparently he was referred to as Haydos in his junior days, at the start of his county championship career. So when Adam Lyth got called up for England, there was talk about that it could well have been Alex Lees at that point, but they wanted to go.
They just got the wrong name.
Quite possibly, yeah.
AL Yorkshire, one of them.
Close, one of them. So apparently he does have it in the locker. But like today, even the way he got out today, 44. Doesn't move his feet, just leaves his bat there, and you're a bit just like, mate, that was there for the taking.
Yeah. So I think because he got 100 runs across the match or 110 runs across the match, he's probably nailed on for at least the summer. I'd have thought. Crawley's an interesting one because it is so inconsistent. I've said this quite a few times. I think Crawley will probably end up being quite a good white ball player at the top of the order for England, and if he has an extended Test career, it might be in the Bairstow role at number 5 that he actually fits slightly better. The problem for him, and I think in this Test, he did get 2 quite good deliveries. They're
almost identical.
Yeah, they are good balls, but the opposition are going to try and bowl good balls. Like it's
your job as an opener to negate
you
them.
Can't
right?
get out. It's okay to get out to them sometimes, but basically any time a good ball comes along, he gets out. And sometimes when a bad ball comes along, he also gets out. And that it's tricky. I think certainly in the second innings, there's an argument to be made that a really good player leaves it, but he didn't. I'm not going to castigate him too much based on 2 failures where he didn't face 10 balls. I think that that's when you're at your most vulnerable. I don't necessarily have a huge problem with that. I think it's the scores since his 100 against West Indies that are the bigger problem. That he hasn't had a good one. Now, if you are an opener, it is kind of a feast or famine existence. There's a lot of famine, isn't there, in between the feasts?
If you're an England opening batsman, definitely there's a lot of famine. But again, there's always people knocking on the door. Like Rory
Who
Burns
did you pick up? Rory Burns.
Oh, I would
Burns
never
back
drop
in.
Roy Burns. Yeah, but at the same time, and again, it's interesting talking about this. Now England are going for kind of aggressive cricket. It's difficult for Sibley to get back in, I think, based upon his reputation. Even if he's developed one more scoring shot, I think because he scores so slowly, England are now not trying to kind of almost reduce the opportunity to lose and extend the way that they can draw. So
Yeah,
I think Crawley stays for a little while.
I think I'm sure he will stay for a little while. I think Ben Stokes gave quite an interesting interview after the game where it seemed like he had quite a clear vision for what he wanted from his players. He was talking about Pope and how Pope owed him nothing, but he did want him in the team. Pope owes me nothing. Like, well, a little bit of an oxymoron there, Ben, isn't it? But I do. So I think he'll stay in the team for a little bit. I think the thing that's been quite refreshing about the last two tests is that England have remembered that runs are the currency of the game, particularly from a batting. Yeah, you've got to score a lot of runs. Now, whilst that to some extent it's a little bit of a detracting point for Sibley, I think you can probably also make an argument that having somebody who provides a little bit of ballast in your top order, who averages, what is it? He averages 80 balls per dismissal in Test cricket. Someone who provides a little bit of stability on that front might mean that you get more runs overall. Might make you slightly less collapse prone. Might mean you get through some stickier patches a little bit, or you're a little bit more likely to get through a morning at Lord's or whatever, or even away from home, get through the first 15 overs of the Kookaburra and then make hay. So I don't think there isn't a position for Dom Sibley in the team. I think the position is the Alex Lees position, though. I think Lees played the way he did today and how he did on Saturday, because the pitch was as docile as it was, and he recognised that and he cashed in. I'd imagine we'll probably see him knuckle down a little bit more in other matches, but we'll see. I mean, I'm not necessarily calling for a change right away. I think I think
you have to give people a chance. I think when Max and I did the roundup of the first thing, a lot of people were going, "Why the hell is Ollie Pope at 3? He's just like shit. He's never batted there before, because he's never going to do very well." And he's come back and hit a century here, and he probably does owe Ben Stokes quite a fair bit to be in that position. But again, maybe Crawley's big innings is in the next Test match. I don't know. Maybe it's against India, where it would be really interesting to see him take on Bumrah, take down Shami, and the rest of them. So. Yeah, we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. It might not, though. It is a problem that he does fail for such low scores so regularly, I think. And I think he's still... I don't think he's... even with that century against West Indies, I think he's still got a sub-30 batting average. And that is bad.
Yeah, that's like me.
I just want to quickly look it up. I mean, it's got to be 28 or 27 or something like that. Let's see. Zach Crawley, batting average, 27.2. 23 matches. It is... But why is he in the team now? It's because he scored a nice 70, didn't he, in Hobart, which was a very good innings, has to be said. Then he got a ton against West Indies.
Yeah, and he got a 40 in the last game.
I am slightly... I mean, he did get 40 in the last game, and I can see tactically to some extent why you do want Pope, let's say Pope and or Crawley or a Crawley replacement in your top three, so that you can put pressure on the opposition. And it worked. It worked in this Test match. I think it probably worked in the last Test match as well. Like England scored runs quite quickly from ball one. Meant you couldn't just leave 5 slips in and shuffle through your bowlers while the ball was moving around. You had to think a little bit if you were a Kiwi captain. Yeah, so I don't necessarily want them to move away from that, and I don't know whether the answer is on the Crawley front. People are like, oh, they picked the wrong Kent opener. They should bring back Burns and stuff like that. It's yeah, I don't know whether Burns is the answer. I think Burns might be the best opener in England at the moment, but
Mhm.
I don't think we're going to see any more from Burns than we saw in his Test career. And how old is he? 32, 33? Not going to get any better, is he? Crawley might actually get better. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I want him to turn into Matthew Hayden. That's what I
yeah,
want to see. This
no,
bully at the top of the order for
yeah.
England. That's what I want to see, and
I mean,
he
look,
can do it.
yeah, I'd settle for an average of 35. To be honest, it doesn't have to be Matt Hayden. I don't know 50. Let's just baby steps.
Maybe.
So I don't. Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to get rid of that. As Tim says in the chat as well, Crawley could do all right in Pakistani conditions. No, he's not. Yeah, he's a poor man's Khawaja at the top of the order. Like, why? If the pitches they wheel out are as flat as the ones against Australia, he'll fill his boots. We've seen he can fill his boots on flat pitches. Maybe that's maybe he's just become get a Pakistani passport and transfer, and then he could fill his boots all day long. Ankit asks, is Butler out of England's Test squad? I think Butler is probably now, hasn't he? Folks has.
I hope so. I genuinely hope. Yeah, I think Folks looked brilliant. I think he looked assured. He batted really well in the last Test match. He kept really well in this. Also got another 50 here. There was a comedy run out with Potts, who had a pretty terrible first half of this game. Folks is here to stay.
Daniel asks, is Jamieson's absence from the bowling the number one factor, or would Stokes and Bairstow chase it down regardless? Counterfactual for you. How important was Jamieson? We agree he was important.
Yeah, I think it was, but then also like Southey was shit. Like there's always a bit there was a weak link in their bowling, and I think once the ball stopped moving, Henry was also a liability. So I think unless Jamieson was going to be the Jamieson we saw in the World Test Championship when he's carried a bit of a niggle, it's one of those things, isn't it?
Cricket in Conversation asks, is this Bairstow's best place in the batting order? And would the result have been different if New Zealand hadn't shelled all those chances? Well, I think, to be honest, England shelled. They did their fair share of shelling.
Yeah, we're both teams were jugglers, and both
England dropped the guy who got 190 on 3
when he was up. He was on 3.
That was a changing doors. What do they call it? Sliding doors. Changing doors. Nah, changing doors. Same. Get the same thing across, don't you? So yeah, Lana asks, do you play Leach and Crawley in the next game? So I think we're saying Crawley in. Do we get rid of Leach?
So Leach is a really interesting one because I think Leach on this deck, it was a pretty flat deck. It kind of turned a little bit, but again, it seemed quite easy for them to bat on. Like people could move their feet quite freely. They could trust the bounce. So I think when you come up against really good teams, it's really difficult. There's also a piece around why can't you just tie down an end? Unless you're an elite spin bowler, you can't really just do that as easily. I think there's only 3 spin bowlers in the world who go at less than 3 and over, and that's like Nathan Lyon, Ravichandran Ashwin, and someone else that I can't remember, as I saw in a tweet a few days ago. But that is the bit we're asking Jack Leach to be something he's not. It's just really quite challenging. I was surprised he was picked in this game. I think they had a perfect excuse to kind of say, do you know what, he got smashed on the head. We'll give Parkinson another rollout. But they didn't.
I think the problem that we've seen, we've seen exactly what he can do, and it isn't the bowler that they needed in the game. He didn't provide really any threat. The wickets he got were batters basically like, I'm just going to plunder this guy. And they did. And if people do try and plunder you consistently, you'll go at 4 and over and you'll average 50, which is about what happened to him in this match, isn't it? I just don't think that he does anything that suggests he should ever be playing in an England home test after having seen him here, and you can see exactly why he wasn't playing last year.
Yeah, and you look at some of the games we've got coming up, right? Actually, if you're looking at, even if we just take the India game just as a microcosm, like the Indian batsmen aren't going to be worried about playing Jack Leach. They might be a little bit worried about playing Matt Parkinson.
I think
And I
that's
think that
possible. Yeah. I mean,
maybe,
yeah.
It's just it's
I
that
know.
it's that known factor. That known factor.
The thing is, I mean, at home, really, probably the answer is just play four seamers on some of these pitches. But then they'll get in trouble.
They're all injured.
Yeah, but people start moaning at them that you never play a spinner at home.
But
But
then Joe Root's been pretty good with the old ball and probably could do an okay job.
yeah, I don't know if maybe if he's not captain, he can bowl 10 overs per ball, and do some damage.
I think,
but
and that's where someone like Dan Lawrence really helps this team. I know Dan Lawrence is. I like Dan Lawrence, and I know that some people won't. But there's probably not a space in the middle order at the moment. Now you've got people with centuries in 3 and 5, and then Roots there, and then Stokes at 6.
Now England are great again.
Yeah, but I think that lineup's there to stay for a while. I think that Leach question is quite difficult, and I think it'd be interesting how they manage it. They've terribly managed Jack Leach, and they've also terribly managed Matt Parkinson over the last couple of years.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, to give them some credit or to let them off the hook slightly, Jack Leach hasn't got any better 25 Test matches. He does the same thing. He comes in, bowls an okay line of length. If there's a lot of assistance from the pitch, he can be quite difficult to play because he does reasonably consistently hit a line of length. If there isn't, then the batter knows exactly where it's going and exactly how much it's going to spin. And they just milk him.
Or they absolutely
or they decide I'm just going to come down the pitch and hit you in the stand.
Which is what Mitchell and Blundell were doing, right? And
yeah,
I mean, if you look at what Pant did to him before, it's just kind of he's there. So yeah, I'm a Parkinson buyer. I think he should be playing in the next Test match.
Yeah, I mean, I bet they'll roll out Leach. What about Mo back? What about Mo back for Pakistan? Would you do that?
It'd be hilarious if Moeen Ali was sitting on commentary and goes, "Yeah, I'm available again," and then they just dump Leach. That would be brutal, absolutely brutal. But England's batting lineup from 8, 9, 10, 11. We've got 4 number 11s there, and maybe they'll just be like, you know what, fuck it, we'll get Moeen Ali in here. He can bat at 8.
Yeah, I mean, they could do that. I wouldn't be stunned. They basically did this last year, didn't they?
But Moeen Ali has Virat Kohli's number as well, so that's even funnier. So maybe they're just going to go, let's get him in, roll out. We've already won this Test series. Mo, you're coming back, and you're going to play against India. You're going to get those 2 games. If you do well, you're in the team. If you don't, you'll be back in Pakistan.
I quite like Mo on commentary.
When we play against Pakistan, there.
Basically cheerleading for himself.
He comes across so humble and so humble, and yet also as I should be playing.
Yeah, right. India, they have been playing 3 matches against South Africa. They are 2-1 down. Have you noticed anything interesting there?
Just some of the selection I just think is a bit strange. Like, I'm not sure. In our Discord channel, we've obviously got thousands of messages around some of this stuff. And I'm just not sure they're picking the team that they should really be picking. South Africa look okay as well, actually, which is quite interesting. And I think that if we want to start thinking around the classic dark horses for the World Cup, South Africa going to get that tag again this year, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be on, couldn't it? I think it's kind of a weird series because I think they're both quite imperfect T20 sides. If we put South Africa to one side I mean, they've got Dwayne Pretorius at 3 for crying out loud.
He's got a ridiculous strike rate, doesn't he? He's got like a 170 strike rate.
I know, but it just seems sort of strange, doesn't it? India though, I think are the kind of more interesting one because once again they've kind of selected. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's you just have to be. Have you the game Pointless? Maybe what the selection for Indian T20 teams is that they go out, send some people out into India, and they do a big game of Pointless, and whoever scores the highest on Pointless, so whoever gets recognised the most. Family fortune is maybe a better way of looking at this. They get in the team. That's how it is. So it's like who knows Ruturaj Gaikwad? That's 97 out of 100 people. Was he any good? No, but everyone knows him. In you go. Ishan Kishan, same thing. Did he do anything? Has he done anything for 2 years? No, not really. Everyone knows him. No place for Mumbai. In the team. Shreyas Iyer, yeah, he's maybe India's next captain. Definitely need to pick him, even though he's rubbish. It's you have to get to 4 in their order before there's a player that definitely has a serious case of being in the team, and even Rishabh Pant. I did have a great year in the IPL, but I had a couple of kind of questionable ones before that. Hardik, I like Hardik.
I think Hardik should have when KL Rahul was ruled out. They should have made Hardik captain.
Dinesh Karthik,
deserves to be there. I think he deserves to be there based upon it. But again, they've got 2 wicket keepers in this team now.
Yeah,
I think 3 wicket keepers. They got Ishan Kishan as well. It's just like this.
I think it's so strange that you don't have Prithvi Shaw, that they don't have Sanju Samson, and that they haven't in an irrelevant series played Rahul Tripathi. All of those players should be in this team. And what's even more hilarious is that we know they're going to drop 2 of these guys for even worse players when it comes to the World Cup. It's actually quite incredible that they're in this situation. One of the questions in the Discord today, Ross, was would England's Test team from today beat India's T20 team from today in a T20? And I think they sometimes would. I think India would have just a bit of an advantage because I think the bowling is better. But I think batting wise, I'd kind of be tempted to take the England half of that draw.
That's gonna wind so many people.
Well, I'm serious. Bairstow over either Kishan or Gaikwad, I'd do that. And Crawley's a very good T20 player, actually. I think you can make a case that those 2 are better than the 2 openers here. Shreyas Iyer or Joe Root, not much between them. I think in T20s.
Joe Root reverse scoop of a Southie was insane, absolutely insane.
Okay, so that's the top 3. Then Rishabh Pant probably right, but Stokes. Don't love Stokes as a T20 player, but he's not an absolute. He's not a gutter ball, is he? Like he's been quite a few international teams. Jack Leach probably not up to the task.
Husey Chahal, Jack Leach. I'm not too sure.
It's quite a funny thought game, though, and I think in an ODI, I think England's Test team today would beat that India 20 team.
Yeah, well, I think there's also a bit around looking at the bowling. Like Harshal Patel is brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant, and Bhuvi continues just to do what he does. Right, goes at less than 6 and over. Normally picks up a wicket or 2 and just does very well. I think they're trying to give Avesh Khan a bit of a run, which I think is probably a positive thing. Is Akshar Patel the guy you want in this lineup? Maybe not. But
probably not.
But he can bat to a certain extent, and the left arm offers something a little bit different. But again, I'm just not sure on his position in this team.
I'd probably agree with that. I'd say particularly because he spins the ball the same way as Chahal. Who else do they go for though? Ashwin. Good pick, Ashwin.
Well, Kuldeep Yadav was in the side, but then got injured, wasn't he? After his renaissance.
Well, he can't bat.
He definitely can't bat. No, so
maybe they need somebody. Bring Shardul Thakur back in.
No, it's all about Deepak Huda. That's what it's about. Part-time offies, smashing it. But anyway, India won today, didn't they? They beat South Africa quite comfortably, but South Africa still lead. And again, they're still playing without Quinton de Kock in that side. But I think there's some good potential in this space, and also Wayne Parnell. Wayne Parnell is someone that I genuinely thought was playing cricket when I first started playing cricket when I was like 13. He's been around forever.
I saw Wayne Parnell at the T20 World Cup where Stuart Broad was England's captain and they lost in the Netherlands. I saw him live. How old is he? 70?
Maybe 71.
Maybe 71. He's only 32. Ross, this geezer's only 2 years older than us.
Yeah, I swear he's been around forever. He's one of those players. Like in football, we just like, has Dennis Irwin been playing for 20 years? What? I just find it amazing that he's still going, but clearly doing okay. There's another game happening at the moment. It's an ODI, isn't there, between Sri Lanka and Australia? Australia about to win the 15 from 15 balls. But again, it's just one of those games I just really don't care about.
Right, we've got one more topic